What's up YouTube, welcome back to the channel. Thank you guys for clicking on today's video. We need to talk about something that the mainstream media does not want to cover and that I think needs to be talked about and covered here on YouTube by more content creators, and that is the fact that China is punking the entire world. And we're just sitting back and letting this happen for the most part. We haven't had any of our big leaders that are in office that are silent and senile. They have not addressed the fact that China is running things, and China is able to punk us by launching a massive rocket and having some technical difficulties while this rocket apparently is somewhere out in the stratosphere and it is going to enter Earth's orbit by tomorrow or by today if you're watching this video right now, May 8th. So before I read this article and share my thoughts with you guys, I have to leave a quick disclaimer that I can't share exactly how I truly feel without using code, okay? So if I use code a lot during this article and things I say, just realize it's so this channel doesn't get shut down. It's so the algorithm doesn't pick up on certain keywords. And you know what? It's probably already going to get hit with something because I talked about China in general because they have control over the media as well. But just bear with me, that's my warning. Let's start reading the article. So this is from the Wall Street Journal, very obviously credible, from Time Magazine, okay, online. A massive Chinese rocket will fall uncontrollably back to Earth soon. It probably won't land on you. Okay, they're trying to make a joke out of this, like it's funny, like, oh, well, there's nothing to really worry about, when China has created the CV in the first place, and we still haven't pressed them. If you really think about it, as the United Nations, we haven't pressed them about where this came from, how it happened. There's been no trials, there's been no one taken in and questioned. We've kind of just let it go over our heads, and we've kind of just, submitted to China because we're afraid to ask the tough questions to our daddy, aka China. The Chinese government runs this entire thing. And yeah, I don't think this video is going to get monetized. So let's just read this article, and I will still continue to share my thoughts in a way that the algorithm hopefully can't pick up on. But it's hard to share my thoughts when I feel so frustrated with the way things are ran in this country and the way that we don't address certain topics like this and issues like this. Being a young person growing up, it's sad to see that our leadership in this country has gone down the toilet. If you're not at least a little worried about the core stage of China's Long March 5B rocket now flying, tumbling, really, through low Earth orbit, you're not paying enough attention. Okay, so this rocket is going to hit Earth that China launched, and we're just allowing this to happen. The giant chunk of space junk measures 30 meters or 98 feet long and 5 meters, 16.5 feet wide, and weighs 21 metric tons. It's traveling on an elliptical path around the Earth, measuring roughly 370 kilometers, 230 miles high by 170 kilometers or 105 miles low, and that orbit is decaying fast. At the current rate, the rocket stage should re-enter the atmosphere sometime on May 8th, unless it's May 7th or maybe May 9th. No one knows. And potentially scatter debris across the Pacific Ocean, unless it's the Atlantic Ocean, or Europe, or Russia, or Africa, or somewhere in Midtown Manhattan. The point is, no one knows where this freaking giant rocket is going to land. No one knows. It's just out there somewhere, and no one's questioning it. No one's really talking about this. The point is, the only two things we know for certain are the Long March 5B core stage is definitely coming down soon, and B, there's absolutely no reason China should have gotten itself and the world in this position in the first place. But China is our daddy, and they're going to make us call them daddy very soon. I'm telling you guys, they've already pulled one of the biggest pranks on the world with the beer bug. And we're going to see more and more Chinese pranks coming soon to a news outlet or city near you. China is an outlier in the way countries have been disposing of rocket parts for 30 years, says astronomer Jonathan McDowell of the Harvard Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics. They just decided, hey, The Earth is big, this probably won't affect anyone. This particular Long March 5B started out its mission with no shortage of hoopla. It was launched on April 28th with the job of putting the 22-ton, 16.6-meter module of China's Tianhe space station into orbit. While the launch was flawless, at least so far doing its principal job, which was getting the Tianhe to orbit, the follow-through was indifferent at best and reckless at worst. When spacefaring nations sent a payload to orbit and jettison a spent first rocket stage along the way, they typically don't let that stage fly too high or too fast, which would allow it to reach orbit. Rather, they keep it on a parabolic suborbital trajectory. That means when it's done with its work, it falls immediately back to Earth in a predictable way and in an unpopulated area. In the case of rockets launched from Cape Canaveral, the dumping ground is the nearby Atlantic. In the case of China, which launches its rockets from Wenqing Launch Center on the southern island of Hainan, the Pacific is typically the junkyard. But the Long March 5B didn't fly that way. Instead, the core stage made it all the way to orbit along with the Tianhe model. Tianhe has its own guidance system to keep it in high stable orbit, but the spent Long March core stage was left behind in a much more wobbly and unsustainable orbit, and now it's destined to fall back to Earth. The fact that China let the core stage go into orbit reflects a lack of caring, says McDowell. They really do have to get with the 21st century. Or China doesn't care because they realize they're running the show behind the scenes in the United States and these other nations. Trying to guess exactly where and when the rocket will re-enter is no simple business, though the US military, for one, is doing its best. US Space Command is aware of and tracking the location of the Chinese Long March 5B in space, said a US Space Command spokesperson in an email to Time. But its exact entry point into Earth's atmosphere cannot be pinpointed until hours of its re-entry, which is expected around May 8th. And if you're watching this video will be uploaded on May 8th. So today, the rocket's re-entry time will be determined in part by Earth's atmosphere, which can swell or contract slightly depending upon random fluctuations of solar energy reaching the planet. The more contact the atmosphere makes with the rocket stage, the faster the orbit will decay, which we're hoping for. The question of just where it will re-enter is more complicated business. The rocket stage's orbital inclination, its angle relative to the equator, is 41.5 degrees, carrying it as far north as Chicago, Rome, and Beijing, and as far as New Zealand and Tasmania. That puts an awful lot of people in its direct path. And don't think for a minute that China didn't realize what they were doing, okay? Don't let them fool you and make it seem like, oh, we don't really know how to operate these rockets. And this massive rocket that we created just got shot up into space, and oops, it accidentally hit a huge populated area in the United States or wherever and caused a ton of casualties, and they're going to make an excuse for that. Oh, they had an excuse for the CV, and what I'm trying to say is they're going to have an excuse for whatever happens with this as well, because they're running the show behind the scenes. It's impossible to know which population centers, if any, the rocket will threaten until just before it begins its final re-entry. Its orbital speed exceeds 280,000 kilometers an hour, or 17,500 miles per hour, and miscalculating the re-entry by half an hour either way can make a difference of more than 10,000 kilometers in landing distance. It's a mug's game trying to predict re-entry location, says McDowell. The good news, of course, is that more than 70% of Earth's surface is water, increasing the odds that the rocket will splash down harmlessly into the oceans. Oh, but it doesn't matter that we're destroying the ocean and all the life that's in it, and that's eventually going to affect our food and our water as well, and our irrigation. Well, it doesn't matter because it doesn't affect us immediately, but over time it will. We're still not holding them accountable for their actions, is what I'm trying to say. Much but not all of the rockets should also incinerate during re-entry. What typically survives, McDowell says, are small components made of metals that can tolerate the extreme heat of re-entry and larger ones that melt at lower temperatures. but may partly make it through due to their size. Even if this particular piece of space debris does us no harm, there's plenty more where it came from. Space Command reports that at any given moment, it's tracking 27,000 human-made objects in space, the majority of which are low Earth orbit. 27,000 of them, guys. The ability to venture into space might be one of our species' more impressive achievements, but as the long march is showing, it can come at a dangerous price. And I really hope that no one gets harmed when this thing lands. I think we need to start being more aggressive with China, and I liked what Trump was doing in office for 4 years when it came to how he handled China. I liked that he was on their necks about certain things. I liked that he was pushing creating products here in America to bring our economy up and bring businesses back here. Do I agree with everything he did? No. But we need to keep our foot on China's neck about certain things like this, because they're going to continue to do little things like this when they know that our leaders are weak and our leaders are bought and paid for by them. And it's ridiculous that we never questioned them about the CV and where that came from and details about that, and we never had any hearings, and now this massive rocket is going to land and there's no one asking any questions and no one's really talking about this. This needs to be addressed and prioritized, in my opinion. But let me know your thoughts. What do you think about this whole situation? Did you even hear about this? If it's May 8th or later on in the future and you're watching this video, let me know in the comments if this happened and what you think about this moving forward and what this means for the future. Until next time, have a blessed rest of your day and stay safe. Peace. I'm gone. Have a good one, guys.